Hey there, YouTubers. Right. So, should you buy an AMD 7000 CPU now or wait a month for 13th gen Intel CPUs? Let's get into this discussion. Now, if you know this channel, you know I'm a bit biased towards Intel. We have probably 3 to 4 times the amount of Intel CPUs, so keep that in mind. If at the end of this you're like, barely agree with me that Intel is better, well, maybe AMD and Intel are about the same. Um, I'm curious, so comments down below. Love to see some discussion on this. All right, AMD 7000 product line. You can see from this, the Ryzen 5 7600X is the weaker performer of these four, and then Ryzen 9 7950X. You see the cores and threads, you see boost and base frequency, you see total cache, which is, obviously been a strong point of AMD. PCIe 5.0, well, they're just finally catching up to Intel 12th gen and 13th gen PCIe 5.0. TDP, this is kind of interesting. They throw their number on there. Intel has theirs on there. In some aspects, depending on what you're doing, the AMD chip may use more power. It may use less. So keep that in mind. Intel, you can always kill turbo boost, and we'll talk about that in some other videos that I'll do when I actually get some 13th gen in here. But still great performance out of them. Price points, $300 to $700. All right, there may be a mistake later in the slide. So Intel's product line, i5 13600K and KF are the weakest performers on here, and then at the top the i9 13900K and 13900KF. Now you see cores. There are more cores on here when you compare these to AMD's offering, but that is because of the additional efficiency cores, which should in the end mean that the multi-core scores are greater with Intel. Also lists the amount of processor threads. They only show L2 and L3 cache on here. And you see the turbo frequency and all that good stuff if you care. Now, AMD CPUs, we didn't mention it. They have integrated graphics, but it's really weak. It is meant for troubleshooting, allowing you to look at your BIOS. Not much, for gaming from that will be had, okay? Intel's gets better and better, it seems, with each generation. Expect that you will be able to play, if I remember correctly, 1080p performance low and actually be able to game on it with most of these CPUs on here, okay? The huge benefit of Intel, if you've already got a bunch of DDR4 RAM, you are still able to use it with 13th gen. If you want to upgrade to the future, DDR5 is compatible here as well as with the AMD. Now, you see the power listed there. Price, so we're talking $294 up to $589, and I'll just round that up later. Round down, round up. So let's look at this AMD 7000 versus Intel 13th gen. The 7000 series, did I hit that right? 300 to 650? 699. So there's where your mistake is. So it's 300 to 699. Over here, roughly 300 to 589. Motherboards. X670, X670E, they are freaking expensive. The cheapest one is like $250, okay? So, how do these dollar things work out for me? Well, this is basically about $250. This is, really ridiculously expensive, right? Same can be had with Z690s. There's some really expensive ones out there, but there are some that are in the 150 range to 200 range. So that's why I took $1 off of there, right? Now, When you're talking motherboards currently, we know there'll be X670, X670E. They're already available. B650 is supposedly coming out. That may drop into the low 100s, or it may be up in the high 200s, or excuse me, high hundreds. Remains to be seen. Now, motherboards with Intel, you've got a much wider variety. You can use all these 12th gen ones with a BIOS update. They'll work with 13th gen, alright? Z790, they'll be pretty pricey, but you know, for the amount of selection, if you're not going to overclock, you may consider a B660 or H670. I would stay completely away from H610, but that is a cheaper option. And then Z790 will add, you know, some features. May or may not be worth the money. Remains to be seen. We'll get some on here eventually. CPU cooler. Neither one of these has a stock cooler, okay? Both will require a premium CPU cooler. That may set you back quite a bit, right? Now for me, benefit here, I've got a bunch of LGA 1700 coolers. So I am pretty much set. I had a lot of LGA 1151, 1200, and guess what? Was able to get LGA 1700 kit. Boom. They're good for the 12th and 13th gen. Where over here, you know, I'm probably going to have to buy some new CPU coolers, or see if I can get a kit out there, or find out, you know, hey, some of these might actually work with AM5, and I just don't know it at the moment. Now I tried to put this comparison chart together. So basically, you have in each one of these boxes there would actually be 3 places where this X could go. A real perfect tie is exactly in the middle, like this one's shown, okay? One that's kind of edging maybe towards Intel might hang this way. You know, and if it's barely over the line, it would have been here. If it's really strong Intel, it's way off to the right, okay? So, AMD folks, they don't do so great in this, my comparison, right? Now, is this a place where I'm biased? Let's talk about that. CPU cost. You saw for most of the CPUs that Intel had a lower offering, right? So that's why this is edging a little bit over this way. You know, nothing is shown for Intel right now to compare with the 7950X. But, you know, out of the ones we can compare, Intel has the lowest price point, okay? Motherboard cost. You know, if you were to say, well, you can only look at the newest motherboards, then this would probably be a tie. But considering Intel, you can look at all kinds of different motherboards, and you could actually buy that motherboard right now, a super cheap one that will work with 13th gen. I say that. You may need a BIOS update. Keep that in mind. So you may have to find one that's already been updated. Potentially one of mine that I might resell on eBay. I even put in a title, 13th gen compatible. Alright, so over here, next, motherboard variety. Boom, you know, same deal, right? Much more Intel motherboards out there, H610, H670, B660, Z690, and then Z790. So a lot more variety of stuff for that. CPU cooler cost. Now this potentially is right in the middle, but you know, for somebody like myself, like I said, I have all of these LGA 1700 CPU coolers that may have originally been designed to be 1151 or 1200, and with a kit was able to add those. Now I also know that there are $20 CPU coolers out there from Intel that may actually cool off something like the 13600K. So that's why we're edging a little bit towards Intel on this. Now, talking RAM cost, DDR5, this is right down the middle, right? A tie. However, what you don't get with AMD is the ability to do DDR4. Advantage over here. So you see how somebody that is Intel BIOS can, really slant this over towards Intel. iGPU, look at that. Well, yes, AMD has one, but it's going to suck. At least you can get by gaming over here. So we're going strong Intel right over to the right. Boom, another hit. Now what I don't know for a fact, multi-core performance, is who's going to be greater. I'm going to assume because AMD potentially with 7000 series has bested 12th gen, that 13th gen will take that back over. Now I've seen reports that single core performance will be better with AMD, but I don't know that for a fact, okay? And I can't necessarily put that X in there, but this may be all that matters for those of you that are gamers, right? Some games this multi-core matters. Some games, most games probably, this matters more. So this may be a deciding factor for those of you that decide to get AMD. Now it's been a while, folks, since I did editing videos. We would put that in here too, really, if we're going to do a real comparison, figure out, what 4K editing, which CPU works better with 4K editing is basically what we look at. Maybe even do some animation renderings and things like that using something like Autodesk 3ds or what is it, Maya. So there you go, folks. Personally, I'm going to say Intel is the champion. Wait until October. It's only, well, ain't that far away, right? Might only be a few weeks, 2 weeks, whatever. So at least give them the benefit of a doubt to see if the 13th gen will stack up to AMD. You may or may not regret it. Now, if you have DDR4, if you have, well, let's just look at it this way. If you already have existing motherboard for 12th gen, you already have a CPU cooler for 12th gen, and you already have DDR4 RAM, it's a no-brainer. You got to go Intel, right? Now, if you're going into this, hey, I'm going to spend because I got money, it doesn't matter, potentially AMD is the way to go, and right now, maybe it's a 7950X. There you go, folks. Thanks for checking out the video. Please like, please subscribe.